it's Mo. It's August. I was reorganizing my red shelf because we're getting to the point of the year where I need to reconfigure some things. I also needed to take some photos for my Instagram, so you can always check out my Instagram. It is linked below. It's not necessarily a bookstagram, it's more of like a real life Instagram, but I am currently doing this 365-day project on there, and I'm a little behind, and by a little I mean 2 months. So you are getting things, but you're getting them a little bit like from before. But I'm going to start posting stories more, so look out for that. Anyway, if you would like to check it out, it's listed down below. While I was reorganizing my red shelf, I usually keep my red shelf on a specific bookcase, and I keep the red books on the right side and my DNFs on the left side. But my DNFs are getting to be quite a few DNFs, so I thought it would be a good time to look at all the DNFs I've had since starting Booktube and see if there are books that I want to go back to and finish off, or see if there are books that I can take away from my DNF pile. I'm currently working on my library reorganization and redo and making my perfect library. There'll be some more videos about that coming out soon, and you can see my progress there. I'm hoping once my library is set, I will have a different red shelf and a different DNF shelf that I can use more freely, but I'm still in the process of moving furniture, so it's a little bit hard to tell. I just want to see if I'm planning on going back to these books, take a look at them, see if they're things that I want to continue on with, or see if they're things that I can unhaul. I'm going to show you the books in vaguely order of DNFing them, although I can't really remember some of them, so some of them are probably off. But the book that I think is the first book that I DNF'd since starting Booktube is The Artist's Way. This is a workbook and philosophy book for how to be creative and artistic. A very famous thing that's come from this book is morning pages. I have a video of me doing morning pages for 30 days. I will list that down below. Morning pages are probably the most well-known aspect of this book. They are where you write stream of consciousness 3 pages a day every morning and just kind of like purge your brain from the night, from the day before, get everything out. And this is supposed to help you become more creative and supposed to help you deal with whatever you're thinking of. It's supposed to help you organize yourself. It didn't really work for me, but if you want to know more, definitely check out that video. So this is a book I got probably about a third of the way through, and it's challenging because you are reading it. You could just read it all the way through, but you are supposed to be doing the exercises as well, and I don't know if I'm going to continue doing the exercises, but if I don't continue to do the exercises, I don't want to just read the book. So this is a little bit of a weird one, but I'm going to say that I'm going to keep this one on my DNF shelf. Oh, I dropped the log lady and I lost her log. I don't know where it went. We'll see if I come back to it. The next book I think I DNF'd was A Clockwork Orange. I was reading this for Linguathon. I was reading this maybe 2021. I was really enjoying it. Strangely, I don't have the page where I stopped marked. I think I probably got about 25% of the way through. I just found this book very difficult to read. It is about a dystopian near future where language has changed quite a bit and people use a lot of words from different languages because of how society has kind of grouped together. It just is hard to read because you have to read a lot of things phonetically. So I did like this one. I definitely plan to continue it at some point, but since I don't have it marked, this might just need to go back on my TBR. The next book I think I DNF'd was Utilitarianism. I read about a quarter of this for Thousand Doors weekend readathon, and I was really enjoying it, but it was extremely heavy, and for a weekend readathon, it was taking me far too long, especially for a book that is under 60 pages. So I will be coming back to this one. It is going to stay on my DNF shelf. Next, we come to our first DNF that you've probably never seen or heard of, and this is Luster by Raven Leilani. This is a millennial fiction, very buzzy Booktube favorite darling that people were loving a few years ago. I started reading this, and it looks like I only got about 40 pages into it, and I just really wasn't liking it. It's just not my kind of thing. It has a lot to do with sex and bodily function, and it's about a young woman who has an affair with a married man, and then that family kind of brings her into their household in some capacity, and this is one that I'm just not going to continue, and I'm going to unhaul. My camera died and I had to plug it in, and then it was too bright to film, so now we are back to continue with DNFs. The next DNF that I have is Ernest Hemingway's The Snows of Kilimanjaro. I read the titular story and quite a few others of this story for an Ernest Hemingway vlog I did. That was for the Booktube spin. I liked some of the stories, I didn't like some of the stories. Short story collections for me are difficult to read all at once because they blur together, I don't remember them. So I read more than half of this and then I stopped reading. I definitely want to go back to this one, and actually this might be a good one to read like right now. Next is a controversial one, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. Now I know a lot of the people that I watch and that I love this book, but I really struggled with it. I got quite a bit of the way through. I got to page 261 of 441. So more than halfway through, only about 200 pages left, less than 200 pages left, and I just did not want to continue it. I was reading this for Sci-Fi September / Space Opera September, and man, I always thought I would go back to this one, but looking at how much I have left, this one is going to remain undecided. Not so much of a great accomplishment. I got about a fifth / a quarter of the way through Ball 4 by Jim Bouton. This is an epistolary book all told in diary entries, and it chronicles Jim Bouton's time as a baseballer, how he was in the big leagues, went back down to the minor leagues, went back up. I really was enjoying this. I was reading this for Nonfiction November in 2021, but it is a slog. There's a lot of stuff that I don't really understand because it's more technical about baseball, a lot about money. I had actually like marked this one off with pages of which like I could read, but like look at how much there is left. I think this one I will keep on my DNF shelf and I will go back to at some point. This one I think is a little bit out of order, but I read The Red Pony for one of the Booktube spin books, and then this particular edition also has The Pearl. The Pearl was the book that was originally on my Booktube spin, but I ended up switching it at some point, reading The Red Pony, which I didn't enjoy because it's very depressing, but I'm glad that I read, and I thought I would go back to The Pearl. I did start reading The Pearl. I only got maybe 10 pages in before I decided to DNF that book. So this one is one, because it's John Steinbeck, I will definitely be keeping, but because I only read so little of The Pearl, I think this is actually just going to go on my red shelf. I'm not going to really attempt to restart The Pearl until I'm in the right mood, until I'm in the right frame. This will go on my red shelf, and when I want to read The Pearl, maybe one day I will, or maybe I will never read it. Next is a book that I started reading in February. I was reading all Black authored books in February, and this is Coulson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad. This is one of his most famous books. It won the Pulitzer Prize. I read his book The Nickel Boys in 2021, and I really loved it. So I wanted to give this really well-known, acclaimed book of his a try. I started reading this one on audio, so it doesn't have a dog ear in it. I had read quite a few Black authored books, which tend to be quite brutal, hard to read, tough subject matter, difficult, and this one was like the culmination of all the books I read, although I read about murder and spousal abuse and sexual assault and all sorts of things in that month. This was like over the top with that, and I don't think I'm going to go back to this one. This is one that I've seen multiple times at different little free libraries. I've seen used. I'm sure I could get this one used again if I want. Even though this is my preferred cover, there's another cover that I really do not like. I don't think I'm going to read this anytime soon. I'm sure it's a great story, and I'm sure Coulson Whitehead is a great author, but I have other books of his that I would rather get to. I have other books that I don't have of his that I would rather read. So this one is going to be a unhaul. Also in February, I started reading Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and Its Urgent Lessons for Our Own, and I got 41 pages into this book. I was really enjoying this nonfiction. I had recently read the first James Baldwin I have ever read, but I was also reading The Sword and... what is that one called? The Sword and the Something, which is about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. And this was kind of in a similar vein of nonfiction. And it was just too close to reading those two together that I was confusing them. I was getting dates and times and people confused. So this is a nonfiction I 100% will be returning to and will definitely stay on my DNF shelf, and I will definitely try to get to hopefully by the end of the year. Getting down to the last few. This is one of the most recent books for Booktube Spin 6. I got The Secret Lives of Cowboy by Tom Groenberg. I've had this on my Booktube Spin list for a long time, and I've had this book for many years. I pulled this out of my basement box books, and I just love this cover. I don't know why. There's something about it that I just really enjoy, so I thought I would like this. It is a nonfiction account of Tom Groenberg going to become a rancher in, I think, Montana or maybe Utah. It's just his struggle of people expecting him to do something different, but trying to do what he really wants to do, even though he has no skills or aptitude for doing those things. I started reading this for the Booktube Spin, and actually one day there will be a vlog where that footage is seen, but I just couldn't read another like white privileged male story of how he got to do exactly what he wanted, was thankful for it and wasn't thankful for it. And he made sacrifices that impacted many people, and also he didn't have to sacrifice to get what he wanted. And I don't think I'm going to be returning to this one. I got 55 pages in only. I also wasn't really loving the writing. It was very purple prose, it was very flowery, and it was very amateurish in my opinion. But I love this cover. So should I just steal the dust jacket and like keep this cover? It's a nice fine hardback. Maybe that's an option. I think I will be unhauling this book, but this is one I'm going to give a little bit more time to because this book I did DNF only a few months ago. And lastly, my most recent DNF is Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Benn. This is a Caribbean novel featuring a bisexual main character. I was really excited to read this, and I did get quite far into it. I got, let's see, 145 pages in, not quite halfway, but almost halfway. But this was a difficult read, partly in subject matter. It has a lot to do with body image and being unhappy in your own body. It has a lot to do with letting your body be used for gain, but you're not really enjoying that use, and you're doing it voluntarily, but like, is it voluntary? It had a lot to do with like lost love and miscommunication. And then it was also difficult to read because it is written in a dialect. So when you are reading the characters' thoughts and the background of the characters, you're reading them in a way that's very easy for me to understand. But when you're reading them speaking to each other, it's in the dialect from Jamaica, and it was really hard for me to wrap my brain around. So even though I read 150 pages of this book, it was so much work, it felt like much longer. Now this is one that I definitely want to return to, but this is one that if I could get it on audio, that would be like beautiful. That would be wonderful. I would love to get this on audio. So if anyone knows of a free audio for this book, let me know in the comments below. But I will be keeping this on my DNF shelf, and I will be returning to this at some point. So those were all the books that I have DNF'd and not returned to since starting Booktube. There have been a couple of books that I've DNF'd and then returned to later, and those just end up in my wrap-ups. Sometimes I mention that they were DNFs, sometimes I don't. You'll probably see some of these in future wrap-ups as well. I do not DNF a book every month. I probably DNF a book every 3 to 4 months. Sometimes a little bit closer together, but usually much, much further apart. I have been trying to DNF more because I do think that DNFing for now or forever is a really good practice, especially when you're trying to enjoy the books that you're reading, when you're trying to read books that you want to read books that you are excited for. Why push yourself to read books that you're not enjoying or not excited for? Let me know how often you DNF in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.